It's time for a reality check.
We're here to deconstruct health and fitness trends and provide tangible advice so you can become 1% better with each choice starting today.
What is up, and welcome back to this episode of Reality Check. So I feel like Jess and I are finding our groove a little bit with this podcast thing, okay? We went from awkward to like only semi-awkward. But we have so many ideas and things that we want to share. So I feel like these early stages are tough because we just like want to get all of these things out for you guys. But today's topic is going to be fun and interesting. And I think it's going to be a good perspective for a lot of people. So we want to talk about what to look for if you are looking to hire a coach, personal trainer, anything along those lines. I know that when somebody asks me what I do for a living and I say, I don't even know how to answer. I don't even know what you say, Jess, but when somebody asks me what I do, like personal trainer isn't enough, nutrition coach isn't enough. And I'm like, how do I answer this question? And usually my answer is like 2 minutes long because I just go into like what we do.
It took me a while to like refine my elevator speech once I started, especially once I started coaching online, because it's like to say personal trainer is easy and people are like, they can visualize what that means. But yeah, we do a lot, and we do a lot in terms of like overall health and changing people's lives. Like the messages we get from our women about like, this is crazy. I'm enjoying life with my family. I've gotten pregnant. My doctors are telling me like, what am I doing? Like all these things are such deep health rooted things that saying I'm a nutrition coach. Like, I don't know. I don't want to be put at the level of many of the people online that call themselves nutrition coaches.
Which is exactly why this topic is going to be a good one. But no, you're totally right. And it's not like you guys can think it's a shameless plug if you want to, but honestly, like it goes along the lines of, I can't tell you how many messages I get of like, do you do macros or do you do nutrition only? And I'm like, I know where they're coming from when they ask me that question. I'm like, man, this goes so much deeper than that. And I'm like, no.
No, like our macros, a tool that we use sometimes, tracking macros. Sure, that's a tool that we use, but there's 100 different tools that we use to help somebody to get healthier.
Yeah, it's like such a small piece of the puzzle. It's just like the fucking scale in terms of progress. It's like one thing, one tool in the toolbox. And yeah, it goes way deeper than that. So that's why I'm excited for this topic. What to look for in a good coach. And it's not to toot our own horns completely, but a little bit, because I do think that we do a really great job of coaching within our scope, but really covering as many bases as humanly possible on such an individual basis. And it really is like, it's so corny to say this, but like, I don't know another way to describe it. It really is like lifestyle transformation. Like women that come into our program are literally changing like who they are on an identity level to get the transformation that they come to us for. And sure, they come to us and think I need to lose 30 pounds. And when they hit that goal, they think, yay, it worked. But like, I don't think they even personally always grasp like the full thing that happened, that they all of a sudden are somebody who prioritizes 8 hours of sleep and makes sure they get protein at every meal and, you know, doesn't go on like a guilt trip after a week of indulgence and things like that. So we kind of compiled a list together of things. It's sad. It's mostly what not to do as a coach, or what not to look for. But
if this episode triggers you, like take it as a sign to step up your game and to learn and to grow. Because also I feel like I actually have an example in my notes here for today of like my first year training in person. I got a big humble lesson from some of my clients in the gym. And it was like, wow, I can take that and say like, well, they don't know anything, whatever. I'm book smart, this and that, or I can learn from them so that I can apply it better to future clients. So anyway, if this stuff triggers you, you need to look within yourself and maybe grow in these areas.
Or also know that there's always room to grow. Like, I think we do such a great job, and there's still so much I don't know, right? That other coaches might. And I look back to same thing, my first year as a coach, and I'm like, ugh. Like it was very, it was based on my background. It was very macro based. And that was like the premise of the entire program, which is why people are looking for these like $100, do you adjust my macros every week kind of coach. And that's okay, right? Like that's where I started, and it's humbling to look back, and it just means there's always room to grow. So this list is in absolutely no specific order of things to look for, things to avoid / red flags. It's just kind of things that we were spitballing as we went. But one of the big things, and I don't even know how this ended up being the first one, but it is the topic of meal plans. Now, technically, only a registered dietitian, or, there's certain people, and it varies by state, are qualified to actually prescribe, because it is a prescription, a meal plan, a structured meal plan. That doesn't mean when you have a nutrition certification that you can't give sample meal plans and meal ideas and recipes, right? Like we give our clients hundreds of those resources, and we have meal planning software tools that they can play with. But if a coach is just giving you a meal plan, and it's very much, these are the good foods and these are bad foods and things that are forbidden from your meal plan,
Red flag.
For the love of God, just like turn around. There's no debate on that at that point, if that's going to be beneficial to you. And I have had meal plans personally. I don't know if you ever have, Jess, but I've absolutely been given them when I was in the bodybuilding space. And I look back, I actually still have one. I should have pulled it up before this episode, but it was so heavy on like chicken and eggs and broccoli, like such bro foods. I actually, like when I retired from that, I didn't eat broccoli for 2 years. Because I was just so fucking sick of it. Chicken breast, I had like a hard time tolerating. I had to like drench it in a gallon of barbecue sauce to eat it. But like there's so many ways to give clients resources in a way that's beneficial to them and they can learn. But meal plans just don't do anything for you. Like when the meal plan is done, even if you reach your goal and feel amazing, like what do you do beyond that?
How do you know how to maintain your results? And like, what do you just, a lot of times what we say, this is my problem with it. A lot of times what we see is people are like, great, this is awesome. I'm seeing awesome results. And then they get burnt out and then they go right back to whatever they were doing before. And there's no in between, versus us coaching people to educate them on the choices that they're making, look at their actual food diaries and say like, hey, what if we swap this for this? Because it's slightly more nutrient dense. Mm-hmm. Here, let me give you a list of fruits and veggies. Are there any of these that you like the taste of? Why don't we add that instead of broccoli if you're sick of broccoli? Like that, it's just so much healthier and more sustainable. And you can enjoy your life more.
Well, I was just going to say that it doesn't allow for any life to happen. You cannot follow a meal plan 7 days a week, 365 days a year forever. It's just not going to happen. One, you're not getting the diet variety that you need, which is why registered dietitians and people who go to school for that are able to prescribe in that manner. But also like life, like sometimes we want Thai food on Friday night and sometimes we go out to dinner last minute, or you're stuck doing kids sports way longer and you're away from home or whatever, right? Like so many situations and scenarios can come up. God knows I forgot my lunchbox 8,000 bazillion times in my adult life. Life is going to happen. Like, what are you going to do if you're like off plan, right? And a lot of times it's that very on-off mindset of like, well, I fell a little off the meal plan, so fuck it mode.
And then it creates shame around eating too. So it creates shame around foods that you think now are bad, whereas you could enjoy those foods and enjoy every bite in moderation if you were coached in an appropriate way and not have these horrible triggers and shame and guilt around eating, because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, it just creates such a horrible relationship with food. And honestly, now that we're talking about this, I genuinely think meal plans could absolutely be their own whole episode, but I digress.
Okay, so the next point, using the scale as their only data point for reference. So when I was training in the gym, I've never been in the bodybuilding space. Me and Jill have come from kind of different fitness backgrounds in that way. She has that experience. When I was coaching people or training people, I guess, in person, I saw this so frequently in that bodybuilding community where the coaches and trainers that coached that particular population would strive for more and more and more just to get that person weighing less, despite all of the other biofeedback saying, my body's unhealthy. I stopped having a period. I feel miserable. My relationship with my body and food sucks. Like, we're not looking at anything else other than let's lose more weight by running more or adding more cardio or taking away more food. Like there's
Yep.
so many other metrics to indicate progress.
And that are way more reliable too than the scale. Speaking of bodybuilding, I mean, I think back to that, and obviously it created a very long-standing horrible relationship with food. But I remember days I called out of work or had to leave work early because my calories were so low that I was like, I can't think, I'm so tired. And it was all in the name of the scale going down. And I took pride in the fact that I skipped lunch and ate so little. And, you know, people in my office would be like, you're only going to eat plain white fish for lunch. And I'm like, yeah, like meal plan, you know? And I'm like, oh, it's so gross to think about. But it truly was just in the name of scale going down. And honestly, we have a lot of clients that don't even weigh, you know, for whatever reason, the scale is a little bit triggering to them. And we have clients that weigh daily. We have clients that weigh weekly. We have clients that weigh monthly, once in a while, never. Like there's just so many other ways to measure, like Jess said, progress. And we care a lot more about how you feel as a human than your gravitational pull to the floor and how much, right? Like it's just not a reliable metric. And also, I think we tie our worth so heavily to this number, and it's just so irrelevant. So that could be a whole other episode too about scale going up and reverse dieting and all those things. But
a good coach is looking at how are you feeling? How's your energy levels? How's your strength? Is that improving? How's your relationship with your body and with food?
Yeah.
And your measurements and how your clothes fit, because we all know that you can put on 10 pounds of muscle and fit in smaller clothes and feel great about yourself. But if you look at that scale and it went up, you're going to freak out. So like,
yeah,
let's look at the big picture, guys.
Yep. Yeah. You got to zoom out for sure. And then in terms of coaching approach, now some of these are tough to really like know before you get into a program, but I think you can really get a lot of this, you know, so it's 2024, like social media, like you can get a lot of this information and this vibe from following someone for a while and just consuming their content and seeing like what type of transformations do they share and what are their topics and all of those things, right? So one of the things we had on the list is metabolism and adaptations of different inputs, which is honestly like a foundation of coaching, honestly, just in terms of like sustainability versus pumping out results. And I talk about this a lot with women coming into the program, is that I could have very easily put everyone at 1,200 calories and have them work out 5 or 6 days a week and just blast my Instagram with these crazy 30, 60, 90-day transformations. But that's not the vibe for me. It's not what I want to promote. I don't want to be one of those trainers in the sea of all that shit. And
the reason we don't want to be those trainers is because the long-term adaptations are not sustained results. Okay. So these people are getting these short-term physique wins and they are able to be like, I'm a great coach. I helped this person lose all this weight. And then they go on their merry way, whether it's because the coach doesn't know how to diet them back out of a diet, or because the client gets burnt out from their crazy program and quits and goes back to what they were doing before. What ends up happening is their metabolism adapts in a less than desirable way, and they end up gaining back more weight than when they started. So we are concerned with not short-term results, which pumping up your cardio and pulling down your calories would get you those short-term instant results.
Yeah.
But we care about long-term sustainability of results, which is going to be actually improving your BMR over time, adding nutrients, changing habits, which takes time. Like
yes,
we have women and it's like
months.
For 25 years, you've been dieting and you want to see results in 3 months. Like it's going to take us time to unwind those patterns.
Mm-hmm. I had somebody comment on one of my videos recently about eating low calorie and metabolic adaptation. And she said, this isn't true. I ate 1,000 calories for the last year and fasted and lost over 50 pounds. And I was like, well, hold on. I don't say you can't lose. You're not going to lose weight at that. I'm just saying, call me in a year from now and let me know how you're doing, because odds are low that you're going to be talking the same way.
Yep. We've had other women who have come to us and it's like, they are like, nope, I've coached with coaches before. I know exactly what to do. And we'll ask them more questions. And they're like, well, they had me at 1,400 calories. And we're like, okay, but like for the whole time? And they're
For
like,
how
yeah,
long?
for a whole year. And it's like, what? What happened
Yeah.
when your body adapted? They didn't change anything. First of all, 1400 is very low. Second
Mhm.
of all, we just kept it there the whole time. We didn't modify anything. And again, we're not coaches who are just each week we send you new macros and that's all we adjust. But like,
Right.
you have to know how to look at how somebody's body is adapting and why you are changing their programming to help their body continue adapting.
Yeah. And I can think of a client specifically who was in that scenario. And when I asked her why nothing was changed, she said that he accused her of lying on her like food journal, because if you were actually eating 1400 calories and doing the workouts I gave you, you'd be losing. And I'm like,
Gross.
okay, we're like
Gross.
eight months in, and that's where we're at. So many things wrong with that. And obviously that's its own massive red flag in and of itself. But yeah, so really understanding the long-term goal and sustainability and getting your results forever, and not having short-term weight loss approaches, meaning restrictive, low calorie, tons of cardio, all of that, which ties into really the next couple of things. Lack of customization of the program. So I see a lot of trainers on TikTok, and I'm not saying that they're not educated or that they're not good trainers, but they're selling a program that's very much this like this thing. It's just this one little package that you buy for this flat rate, and you take it and it's like DIY, right? Some people, if they're experienced enough, might be able to do that, but 99% of the time, like just mentioned, there's behavior change, and that's on an individual basis, right? Like everyone has different behaviors that they've developed over the course of their life, and their lifestyles are different. And some of our clients have one kid or no kid, and some have 5 to 8 kids, right? Like there's so many different variables that come up. And with coaching, it's not just customization of like your perfect macro ratio. It's as your life happens, you check in with me and say, hey, shit hit the fan this week. This kid was sick. This kid had this sport. My husband was away. My dog died, whatever, right? Like all kinds of shit can happen. The customization happens as life happens. And I think that's where people misunderstand what customization actually really is. Like we're building your workouts based on your equipment that you have and your schedule and all of those things, right? But like the customization happens on this regular, frequent touch point that we're having with you as these variables come up. And, you know, some clients are like, oh, I fucked up this week. I'm going to skip check-in. I'm like, dude, you're missing the whole point of coaching. Like, this is the check-in that we got to sit down and say, what's not working? What do we need to fix? What went wrong? How do we improve? That's coaching.
And like, let's pick our 1 or 2 small things that we're going to focus on this week. Like it shouldn't be an unattainable thing either, or a scary thing. We're not judging you for not doing something. We are not perfectly consistent all the time. Right. What we do is say like, okay, cool. This week stuff hit the fan. What's one thing that I can do well? What's something I'm willing and able to do right now so that I can continue seeing progress for the rest of my life versus being on this on-off roller coaster.
Right. And, you know, I'll have a client check in and say, oh, all these things went wrong. I'm like, what happened? Well, my work schedule was different. I had to travel this week. Well, is that a normal thing? No, it's once a year. Great. It's done, right? Like we move on and we get back into our groove. Now, if you have a job where you travel every other week, that's life. And now we have to figure out what's our routine to navigate to adapt to this, right? And still get results and still feel good and still improve our health and all those things. That's the customization. The customization isn't in how many fucking steps you take and what your carb goal is for the week. Like so much.
That is basic. That is the most basic form of coaching ever. And if somebody's like, yeah, I know how to do it. It's not rocket science. It's like they've never worked with a lot of different people from different walks of life where they've needed to actually teach how to apply it.
And also, if we kind of already touched on this with the scale, it's not rocket science for a coach to lower somebody's macros because the scale didn't go down. Do they know how to manipulate your entire program and protocol based on your compliance or lack thereof? Did your schedule change this week? Cycle, sleep, stress, all of those things. You have to look at every single one of those factors at every single check-in for your clients. That's the customization, right? Like I can lower your macros and adjust those in my sleep. So it's knowing why and how you're making those adjustments in terms of that customization.
I'm going to skip ahead to one now that you just said that as a point. I put on my list, they should be able to explain the why behind any changes that they make, whether it is in what exercise they have you doing for how many reps and how much rest, or if it is why they adapted your calories up slightly for this particular week. They need to know the why behind every single thing. We had a coach who used to tell me like, well, they just need to see results. They don't care about the science behind it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not over here over explaining the science. Like, yeah, I do on my Instagram because I geek out about this stuff. But like, I understand that my job is to get them to apply it. But I, as the coach, need to know this why. Okay. If I don't know why I'm implementing something and I'm not able to recognize those patterns and adaptations and make adjustments accordingly, like I'm only going to take a client so far and then I'm going to be stuck. Like they might as well Google a macros calculator and a workout program. Like that's useless if you don't know how and why in every situation you are using the tools that you are.
Yeah. And it ties into another one that we had on the list of, and what you just said, and the one we were talking about before in terms of they're adjusting macros without giving you tools or modifying the goal based on our inputs and our behaviors, right? So if I set this program and protocol for you based on our conversations, our check-ins, your compliance, all of these things up to this point, and you're not seeing that through, maybe we had a fluke week, right? So we try it one more time. But if I start to see a pattern in a negative way, I'm going to say, we got to look at this, right? Because this isn't, something's not working, something's sticky, and we have to pivot. So having tools in your tool belt as a coach, and when I say tools, I don't mean fucking ebooks and whatever, like recipe guides. Like, sure, those are helpful and all that, but applicable tools in terms of really changing your behavior. And these all really tie together, but like you touch on this a lot in terms of like, the tool is not tough love or cheering you on and saying like, you got this, keep going.
Go ahead, girlfriend. I cringe anytime I see like a rah coach who's like, need accountability or motivation, I'm your girl. It's like, no, like if you are that kind of coach, go join a freaking MLM. Okay. Go get a friend to be your accountability buddy at the gym, because that is not my job. And yes, if you ask my clients to describe me, they're going to say motivating and bubbly and whatever. That's great. That's a bonus that I help them feel good, but that is not my job. My job is to educate and give them choices and appropriate expectations so that they can decide what's best for them in their life. And then to help give them behaviors and behavioral tools so that they can actually implement it and change their life. They need some ownership. I am not here to be your best friend and your accountability buddy. If you're not ready to make some changes and you're just looking for that, again, sorry, but anybody who labels themselves as a mindset coach, that is why I got into this, was to help people change at a deep level, not just fitness wise. That could be a whole nother thing, but I got into fitness because I care deeply about people's mental health.
Yeah.
People who say that they're mindset coaches, I want to throw up, because I'm like, oh my gosh, they're just like, go read a fortune cookie or something. Like our job is to educate you and give you tools so that you can actually change your life.
Yeah. And not say like mindset is so important, right? When you're trying to make a lifestyle change, but it's not like, sure, if you want to listen to some affirmations or say some affirmations, looking at yourself in the mirror in the morning, that makes you feel happy. Like, cool. Like live your life. That's amazing. But it's really understanding the science behind behavior change and discipline, and not on like a get it done, do or die, sleep when you're dead thing. It's really understanding like keeping promises to yourself and doing things that develop confidence and making you feel good about your choices and your decisions, and that empowerment. And that empowerment doesn't come from me being your cheerleader. And quite frankly, coaching is what I think, and I know I thought this way early on in my coaching career, and where I see a lot of coaches mess up and it's a huge disservice to their clients, is trying to tell them what to do. Because this relationship and making this transformation is not about us telling you what to do. Yes, we're giving you all of the information and support and guidance and accountability that you need. But like Jess said, it's not just this information overload dump of like, we're doing this because X, Y, and Z, and this cell does this, and right? It's guiding you based on your lifestyle and your choices and your behaviors. And yeah, we have to challenge you and push you. And sometimes you have to do shit you don't want to do, right? But it's really about, what do you want this to look like? And as long as you have the right expectation based on your commitment level and your discipline and your compliance to everything, is really, that's the most positive coaching experience you're going to have. And could you get more out of it if you did more? Probably for a lot of people, right? But like, I can't make you do something. That's like not just coaching. That's in life. Like, you can't make your kids do anything. You can't make anybody do anything. They have to want it. So
And
it's
again,
really meeting clients where they're at too.
If you lead with that, which I think almost every trainer and coach starts that way. I definitely started that way. Because you get really, it feels so good to
I was just a fucking fire hose of information.
And not just the information, but like the feel goodness. I want to motivate my people in my 6 a.m. group session. Like, yay, I'm good at this. I can be their hype person. Like, I love that, right? I love being somebody's hype person.
Yeah.
But like, there comes a point where if they are only relying on you to motivate them, they do not know how to continue on their own. I want my clients to never need me again. Okay. Like, they're not going to be coaching with me forever. I want them to have that like self-efficacy where someday they're like, oh, I got this. And they'll text me and be like, hey, I had your voice in my head today when I was meal prepping or at the gym or whatever. But yeah, my goal is for it to become so inherent in their behaviors and in their identity that like, no, you don't need me. You know exactly what to do. And I can step back and see how much we learned now.
So it's implementing those small steps of behavior change. And sure, like Jess said, we're like celebrating your wins and your success and the things that you're accomplishing along the way, but we're not cheering you on because you're going. You're making these little baby steps that sometimes you don't even realize you're making within a program. And you're developing that confidence and you're empowering yourself by keeping those promises, right? And that's where the cheerleading comes in. Like, I have clients message me and say like, oh my God, look at this. Or look, I just look back at my progress pictures. This is crazy. And I'm like, of course we're going to celebrate that. I'm not going to be like, yeah, okay, like let's keep going. You got like, whatever, we got to move on. Like, of course we're going to celebrate all of those things, but cheerleading is not going to make you do anything. So that's why it's funny when people come to me and say, I just want I need motivation, right? I need motivation. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, nobody needs motivation. That's not the problem.
We need systems. We need to create systems. We need to create habits so that you become that person.
Yeah, exactly.
You're never going to be motivated forever.
Speaking of, go ahead. Which one are you going to go?
Oh, no, go. You go.
Okay. I was going to say, because this kind of ties in, is, we talk about like you have to make a change on an identity level, right? And I think a lot of times I would never do this, but a lot of times women make the choice of a coach or a trainer, which is why they end up having negative experiences based on what they look like. Now, let me preface this by saying, yes, I think there is a standard that we as coaches should be held to. We need to practice what we preach, right? But do you relate with that? Like, if this person that you're looking to hire is 20 and has no kids and works out 6 days a week, and that's the only way that they know how to get results, and you are in your 40s and creeping up on menopause and have 4 kids and whatever, right? Like, you need to make sure that they know how to meet you where you're at in terms of the lifestyle transformation. And I don't mean meet you where you're at as in a 45-year-old isn't capable of doing something a 20-year-old is, because of course you are, but it's just where you're at in your life, and the obstacles and the roadblocks that you experience are not going to be the same as somebody who is 20 with no kids, right? So how they live their life is
I had a consultation with somebody recently who had just had a consultation with another coach, and she was really turned off because this other person was like, well, obviously, like, if you want it, you'll make time for it. And it was like this thing where it was like, she has no idea what it's like to have 2 little kids who are under the age of 4 years old. You can't just be on this pedestal from your one life experience and say, oh, well, if I can make time for it, you can make time for it. It's like, no, your life is completely different. Your roadblocks are completely different than that person's. You need to be able to pull from experiences from all these different types of people and meet each client where they are. And every single person's going to move at a different pace. And our job is to get them slightly healthier over time. It is not to say you should be doing what I am doing, because that is totally unrealistic and unsustainable.
It's that everyone has the same 24 hours in a day saying, and I'm like, the fuck they do.
Nor do they have the same goals. Nor do they have, oh my gosh, that gets me every time.
Yeah.
It gets me so fired up, because it's like these coaches mean well when they're saying that, but it's absolutely useless to say it. Like, it does not help one person with how they're going to implement it in their own life.
Yeah.
Okay, so the next one, if they are not able to coach outside of macros. So let's say they say, oh, well, we can have one cheat meal a week, or we are going to track everything no matter what, or whatever the thing is that the extreme is. They need to be able to also coach for the someday when you are not tracking anymore. We have lots of clients who we coach to habits and to intuitive eating. We have lots of clients that we coach to macros, and then someday when they hit their physique goals, we wean them off of it. We reverse their calories back up, and then we wean them off of tracking so that they can learn to maintain forever and have tracking as a tool in their back pocket if their pants start to fit a little snug in 2 years. But like, if a coach cannot coach you to the way that you're feeling and your relationship with food, and maybe tracking portion sizes instead of putting everything in MyFitnessPal, or maybe looking at how many colors do we have on our plate instead of counting calories, then they're like, the width of their experience is pretty limited, and they're going to have a tough time with the average person who goes on vacation. And like, what do you do when you can't track for a week? Like, I would never make a client track while they're on vacation.
Yep.
Like, let's learn how to make healthy choices and set expectations that are appropriate.
Mm-hmm. And, a lot of clients, usually before they become clients, will say, oh, I have a vacation coming up, or the holidays, right? We always have this, like, this thing's coming up and I'll start later. I want to coach you through that. Like, that's the best time to have a coach to really learn what does it look like from a sustainable perspective to take a vacation and not come back 5 pounds heavier and have a meltdown. Or it's kind of bringing it back to how I say, like, you're in control of your journey, right? Like, it's all about the choices that you make and what feels good for you. And I had a perfect example of a client who had a really heavy social life, and her plan didn't look like somebody who doesn't live that way, right? Because we had to be a little bit more strategic and a little bit more controlled outside of her social settings. And there were times where we were strategic and we just incorporated them into her plan. And there were times where she said, hey, this one social event is really important to me. I'm okay with, like, what happens if I take a weekend off. And I'm like, cool, right? She made the choice herself. She had the right expectations. She didn't track during a social event that it was really important to her, and macros are the last thing that should be on her mind. That's what it's about, right? 99% of the time, when we get the client to a good place metabolically and they go on vacation or they make a conscious decision to do that, they've got so many tools in their tool belt to not go balls to the wall. One, because they're not restricting anymore, so they don't have these, like, massive urges to overindulge, but they also like what it feels like to take care of yourself because they've been doing it and they've been experiencing it in a really healthy way. And then they go and do this thing, and, like, all of a sudden having a whole pizza isn't as important, and having 12 margaritas, it's like, I think 2 or 3 did the job, right? Like, and even if it doesn't, that's okay too, right? But the point is that, like, they learn to make those conscious decisions and choices on their own, and
because they want to, and they're ready. They're ready to, and they want to at that point. Like, our job is to empower them to make the choices that are ready, that they are ready to make. So, like, I have a client, she's actually in our alumni program now. So she has seen excellent physique change and is now continuing on her own. She came to us and was like, okay, just so you know, I smoke cigarettes and I'm not stopping that. Like, and I was like, okay. Like, if you're not ready to stop that, then that's not a thing we're going to work on right now. What are you willing to work on? And then she tells me what she's willing to work on, and we start there. And, like, over the course of time, maybe someday she decides she's ready for that change. But, like, our job as a coach is not to fix people. It's to meet them where they are and support them in getting closer to their goals.
Yeah. And there's so many other things you could do in those scenarios, right? Like, of course, in an ideal world, we would do, like, A, B, and C in this perfect order. But that's where you differ as, like, a coach and a coach, like a good coach, because you have to know how to pivot and adjust and like you said, meet them where they're at. Cheat meals, guys, cheat meals. I hate the word cheat so much. And
me too.
It's actually really sad how many women use it so freely in terms of, I can't help but cheat on the weekends, or I try to only have 1 or 2 cheat meals a week. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does it mean to you to have a cheat meal? And what does it mean to not, right? Like, what does a normal day look like for you? Or, they say things like, I crave sweets and I'm a binge eater. And right, we put all these labels on things that are just horrible for your whole mindset and approach to it. But if a coach is putting that, like, that is part of their plan and their protocol, that's a major red flag, because they, one, likely actually, I don't want to put this label on themselves. They potentially have a poor relationship with food themselves because they are now projecting that at the women coming into their program. Cheat meals aren't relevant and they're not necessary. And the connotation is so negative around the word, but also cheat meal implies that you need to restrict or not have those things on a day-to-day basis. Now, of course, you can't eat Oreos for dinner every night and feel amazing and see the results that you're looking for, but once in a while, like, have some fucking Oreos, right? Have birthday cake, have pizza, go out for margaritas and tacos with your friends, right? Like, your plan should be able to incorporate those things. Now, I tell clients this coming into the program all the time. If you have a social life, like the client I just explained, amazing, right? Like Jess said, we meet you where you're at and we change what behaviors we can. If I think something is limiting you, like, let's have a conversation about it, right? If you're having 3 glasses of wine every night, I'm not going to just skim over that. If I think it's holding you back, I'm going to have a conversation with you about it because that's my job. But I'm not going to say, hey, it's time to pull the wine, right? Like, you got to cut this shit out. Like, it doesn't do anything.
It's not helpful.
Right. It's not, it doesn't do anything. So cheat meals, treat meals, anything along those lines implies that we need to like over restrict or cut certain things out of your diet.
And I think touching on what you said of like, you can never know what somebody's relationship with food and their body is from what you see on the internet, right? Like, there are so many posers out there claiming, I have a great relationship with food. Come follow me, like, do my program, whatever. And like, we've seen them from being in this industry and we've seen how restrictive some of these people can be. And it's sad. And I'm like, I wouldn't want them coaching my daughters because they do not have healthy relationships with their own bodies. And they're picking apart like, well, I want to get rid of this little part of fat on my back and this and that. And it's like, whoa, why are we focused on that? Like, we're focusing on the wrong thing. So I don't think you can know right off the bat, right? But you can certainly ask questions. If you are interviewing a coach that you might hire, ask them questions about how do they personally maintain their results. Are they doing 2 hours of cardio a day and only eating clean? Because that's a red flag. Like, you're not going to be able to maintain that for the rest of your life. And if that's how they are maintaining this physique that first caught your attention on Instagram or TikTok, like, that's not a healthy, like, longevity way to stay fit. So they need to be able to explain to you, like, nope, I have tracked in the past, or I have done this and that in the past, and here's how I now maintain. They know how to ease you out of that diet. They know how to get you someday not tracking so that you can actually maintain for the rest of your life. Like, if the answer is always add more exercise, take away more food, that's not sustainable.
And I obviously wouldn't never name drop. Well, I'll never say never, but I won't name drop this person. But I follow a coach who, bless her, she's so smart, but she talks about this. She preaches like food freedom and intuitive eating, but like, then she'll put something on her story where she talks about how she's maintaining at 1900 calories. And I'm like, you like, based on everything, she should be maintaining much higher than that, right? Based on her activity level and all the workouts she says she does. And I'm like, man, like, I see stuff like that and I get frustrated because then women like plug into a calculator and they're like, oh, my TDE is 1700. I'm like, no, it's not. No, it's not.
And that might be progress for her. She might be on that path of learning like, well, it's more than I used to eat at 1500 calories or at 1400 calories. But like, true food freedom is, I'm not thinking about food all the time. Like, food is not dominating. And I love food. Like, I am a foodie, guys. I love all the foods. But how I'm fueling my body is not dominating my life or my brain.
For sure. It's just, we make choices based on what feels good. Sometimes that's indulging. Most of the time it's not. And that's really the point we want to get everyone to. And I don't know if we touched on this really, but intuitive eating, untracked meals, that sort of thing. I don't love the term intuitive eating. I wish I could just like make up a new one. I feel like it has become a little bit gimmicky on social media and people are like, it's like a crutch. Oh no, I just eat intuitively, but they're messaging me telling me they want to lose 40 pounds. And I'm like, okay, well, like, there's a little bit of a disconnect here because you can't eat based on your intuition if you are sustaining a physique that you don't like and you want to change, right? Like, those two cannot go hand in hand at the same time. So we have
they're thinking, yeah, it's healthy. I've heard that intuitive eating is healthy. So I'm listening to my urges. And it's like, whoa. Like, do I always want like loaded cheese fries? From a taste standpoint, my body would say yes, but like
Yeah.
from a consequences and outcome standpoint, I'm going
Right.
to choose differently most of the time.
Intuition does not equate to cravings. Like those are not
Correct.
synonymous. We
Yeah,
have to,
and
intuition is all of it.
And I do use the word intuitive eating quite a bit, but I use
So
it
do I.
because I know that people associate it with food freedom.
For sure.
And not tracking. Like I very much believe we can see physique outcomes. It might
Mhm.
take us longer, but we can see physique outcomes without tracking also. And that's what I mean when I say intuitive eating, because I agree. It's not
Yeah.
just, yay, I'm healthy at any size and I'll listen to my body and eat whatever I want. Like you're
Yeah.
doing yourself a health disservice if that's how you're approaching it.
hmm And I think intuitive eating, just like every other component of this, is individual. Everyone has a
Mhm.
different version of what intuitive eating looks like for them. And really, that's the ultimate goal, right? Is to get to a place where I'm not saying you attain this like perfect physique because that doesn't exist, but you got to a point in life where you want to maintain and you feel good, right? You don't feel this like desperate need to lose weight. And that's, once you get to this place of maintenance and learning your body and understanding what it feels like to eat at maintenance and understanding your hunger cues and how that feels to nourish your body, but not overeat and not undereat, right? And it takes a lot of practice actually to master that, just like it does in early stages of macros. But that's really the ultimate goal, right? Is to get someone to a place where they're not over consumed by what is this food? What's in it? How does it affect me? Am I going to gain weight? Do I need to burn this off? How many calories are in this, right? Like, but also again, intuition is not just eating whatever you feel like in the moment, because God knows I would spend a lot of money on sushi and that's not conducive to what I want or how I want to feel. So I think it's just understanding that getting to a place to be able to intuitive eat takes a lot of time and progress. And it looks different for everyone. Honestly, there's no one way to eat based on intuition because everyone's is different.
Okay, so I'm going to shift gears and talk training some.
Yeah, cool.
That's my area of obsession.
Yeah.
If you are coaching with somebody who also writes you workout programming, here are some red flags and some things that you should look for. They should be structuring their workout programs. First of all, they should be phasing it appropriately so that your body continues to adapt. It should not be the same set number of sets, reps, rest periods for an entire year straight, or you probably won't adapt. But they should also be able to adapt it to you and your lifestyle. So my first question to every single client is, how many days a week can you realistically work out on your worst week? And why do I say it? Because most people start and they're gung-ho and they're motivated and they say, I'll work out 5 or 6 days a week. And I say, how many are you working out now? And they're like, sometimes 1. And I'm like, no, then we're going to start with 2.
Disconnect.
Yeah. Like, this is not realistic. I've been doing this. I've been lifting for 15 years and I lift 3 days a week pretty consistently. Like, I'm not starting you at 5. So we need to be able to program to the individual. We need to be able to know why we are programming the way we are. We're not just spewing out generic programs. We want to create these metabolic adaptations that we talk about in terms of actually helping them put on muscle over time to speed up their base metabolic rate. High intensity workouts, circuit training, HIIT workouts all the time will not achieve that adaptation over time. And then also, they should be comfortable with like giving you cues and modifications and some level of corrective exercise. And obviously, again, within my scope, I've often worked with physical therapists alongside of my coaching if a client has an acute injury, so that I can say like, hey, what are you having them do? Any like no-goes for me, and let's go at it. But they need to be educated so that you don't end up injured, most importantly. So, and I think that's really, really hard. And I say this working with a team of online coaches, right? I think it's really hard to do if you don't have in-person training experience. So like, you got to find somebody who's really, really good at programming if you're taking exercise advice from them, really. It's hard enough, like knowing how to give those cues and then just giving somebody a workout. I'm always like, cross my fingers and hope they send me videos, because we always do forum calls with them. We'll do FaceTimes or Zooms with them. But I know it's nerve-wracking for people to take a video of themselves at the gym and send it to us. So like, I have to dig a little bit as their coach, but I really want to make sure that people are staying safe under my supervision of writing them workout programs.
Well, and also safety, maximizing their results, making sure that, everything is structured correctly in their program. And another thing that you said that it made me think of is, this might be a little bit off topic, but if somebody has like an injury and a coach just says like, I don't know. I've had people who say like, oh, I have this injury, I can't squat. And if a coach just says, okay, we're just not going to do squats, like,
oh. I always ask when somebody says that, I say, okay, what's your plan when you have to go to the bathroom and stand up from the toilet?
yeah.
What's your plan when you sit down on the couch and you want to get back up? Because that is squatting. You will be squatting in your life. Let's learn how to do it safely.
Right.
Okay, so the other red flags in terms of training stuff would be if they tell you, we just got to do this to keep your heart rate up, or if they have you count calories that are burned during exercise. That is not effective for metabolic adaptation. Sorry, all the Orange Theory lovers that we have coached over the years that we've eventually weaned off of Orange Theory. Tracking your heart rate and using calories burned as a metric is really ineffective. We care about your base metabolic rate. Your body's adapting to that so that those numbers that you're getting on your Apple Watch are inaccurate anyway. It's really useless. Another one is celebrating soreness or celebrating how hardcore you are just for the sake of ego. Like soreness in itself does not indicate effectiveness or progress. This one, I will shout out my CrossFit friends. Like it is celebrated on how hardcore you can be. And that's going to come at the expense of you not being able to continue doing what you're doing for the rest of your life. So learning how to do it safely, learning deep ranges of motion, that sort of thing. If your coach celebrates, sweet, we're so sore, my heart rate is up so high, like this or that, like that's a red flag. They're not like a really experienced trainer, most likely.
Mm-hmm. Proper recovery being incorporated into your program.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not about heart rate or how hard you work or anything like that. So I think we've obviously had a couple episodes about that and the appropriate things. But again, some of these are tough, right? In terms of like, but there are questions that you can ask if you are looking for a coach in terms of like, what type of workouts do your clients typically do? And what happens if I can only work out 3 days a week? Or how many days should I expect to work out? And right, like it's okay to ask those questions. And it's actually really important to understand like what is their approach. When people ask me that question, I'm like, sometimes clients work out 0 to 1 days and sometimes clients work out 4 to 5, right? And we've coached clients through surgeries and pregnancies and periods of very high stress, and we're not just like, all right, make sure you get your lifts done or whatever. They're moving across the country. I'm not calling them like, hey, why didn't you get your 4 lifts in this week? Like, we have to be able to adjust for life and really understand from that schedule and lifestyle perspective too.
I'll hit on the next one. Selling supplements.
Yeah.
Okay. I used to sell Beachbody. Let me just go ahead and put it out there. So when I first became a trainer, I was like, sweet, I'll sell Beachbody. I'll make a little bit of money on the side from Shakeology. And I sometimes follow their videos along at home to get my cardio in because I don't like cardio. Now, like I say that because I shit on MLMs so much for the supplements. And the reason is because most everyone who is pushing those things are not educated in how to achieve and maintain long-term results, first of all. Second of all, the programming in some of those programs is horrible and won't yield best results. But ultimately, if you're incentivized by selling something, it's like anything else. It's like big pharma. It's like politicians. If you're paid off to sell something, you have a different interest in that outcome than if you just have a service to help people get healthier. So sometimes we will recommend, if somebody asks about a particular supplement, we are not against supplement use at all.
For sure.
But we make money on changing people's lives through a service. That's it, period. We do not make money on selling supplements. If we did, I would say that is a red flag because now my interests are not in just helping you become the healthiest person possible. It really drives me nuts because I think it sells a realistic expectation. If somebody who is like fairly fit, if I post myself on Instagram with a supplement and say, this is the thing that helped me get fit, I'm now discounting all of the habit changes that were required to actually help me stay fit and healthy. And I am pointing towards some miracle cure. And that is unethical and it's a lie. And it's going to send people this message that they can just get a quick fix and then not change anything else. And it's just a disservice to people's health.
And I will be the first to say that I partner with Legion. I partner with New Ethics. There are brands of supplementation that I absolutely share and I do make commission. And if I do, you will be the first to know that I do. But I, like Jess said, am so big on making sure that it's ethical and applicable to you, I make pennies on that shit. And it's really, honest to God, the only reason that I make a commission is because I have a discount code and it's a brand that I like and trust. And if a client or person actually needs that supplement, like, here, let me at least throw you a bone and give you a discounted option on these. But I will never have somebody come into my program and say, you need to get A, B, C, D, E. Now we have protocols where there are certain supplement regimens that we suggest, right? But I always tell everyone this is budget based. We can pivot, we can do whatever, right? Like, I will never.
And when she's
sell
talking
my soul to a
protocols,
supplement.
when Jill is talking protocols too, because supplements are something that I have changed my opinion on over the course of time, where I was like, sure, I supplement with stuff. I still supplement with stuff. I still take creatine. I still take whey powder every now and then. Like, I do supplement, so I don't want to mislead anybody. But my opinion has changed on it over time. When she's talking about implementing it into protocols, she's talking about when she gets her clients' lab work done and they are deficient in particular things. It is not our general population. 90% of our clients, we are not recommend. Yeah, most of the population is deficient in magnesium and D, or like fish oils, right? But like, we're not out here pushing a particular brand and calling it a miracle cure, because that's just ridiculous.
Yeah, for sure. And honestly, I would feel so gross if I just posted a supplement was like, you need to buy this. And that was, you can't make a living on it, guys. I make literally like $22 a month, I think, on supplements. It's really not anything to write home about. But yeah, if the whole premise behind their program is you needing to reorder something, shout out to Optivia for that one. That's confident it costs more than our program, and they don't give a shit about you. And if you're listening to this right now and you feel like being an Optivia coach, you can log on right now and become one in the next 60 to 90 seconds. Congratulations, you're a health coach. And now all of a sudden you're pushing these supplements, right? So it's really, obviously, we talked about the premise for our coaching is habits and behavior change and lifestyle and changing your identity and all of these things, right? And meeting you where you're at. Supplements are they're just not necessary, honestly, outside of anything that you're specifically deficient in. I take a thyroid support, I take cortisol support, right? But those are all things I literally just posted on my story today that I just ordered myself blood labs and Dutch tests so that I can revisit, look at things. Are there things I need to pull back on, things I need to adjust, pivot, right? That's when it's appropriate. Otherwise,
but we are educated in coaching, in training, in nutrition. We are not health coaches through an MLM that called us a health coach, is what we want to be very, very clear about.
And I love when I say, which is funny, tying back to the beginning of the episode, when somebody asks me what I do for a living. So I am so hesitant to answer because I'm like, I'm going to answer this and they're going to be like, oh, and actually it's happened to me recently. What company are you with? And I'm like, my own. Thank you very much. I'm not with Beachbody. I'm not with fucking, I don't know, whatever else is out there. So yeah, that's a big one that they're likely just MLM, honestly, if they're selling supplements. And it's not, like Jess said, they're typically not actually qualified to help you make those changes. Okay, we're wrapping up. I knew this would be a long one, but we had a lot to say. So in terms of like someone comes into our program, I cannot tell you how many messages I get a day that says, hey, how much is your program? I have no context on them. I have no idea what they're looking for, nothing. And I will not answer that question for anybody because I need to know, even if, let's say it was $10 a month and you're like, cool, sign me up. Be like, no. I need to see if this is right for you. I don't know. I have no problem. And I have done it. Had somebody get on a phone call and say, hey, I actually don't think this is the right fit for you. Here are some resources. If I think I need to refer you to someone and I have someone in my network, I will do that. This is not just you willy-nilly sign up. I need to make sure that you're in a place to do this, right? One-on-one coaching is definitely its own beast. But I initially do consultation calls with people because I think it's important to meet somebody that you're going to have a really close relationship with, right? And like, I do obviously have coaches and they're not doing all of these calls, but understanding my approach and my dynamic and the way that I run things, I think is really important. And just, we have such deep relationships with our clients. We have clients with us for years. We know things before their spouses know them sometimes. And it's really important that you vibe with them and you trust them and there's rapport there. And sometimes that can be developed through consuming somebody's content and following them for a while, engaging on their stories here and there. But like really nothing beats me getting on those initial phone calls because they mean so much to me and it helps me understand them and what they're looking for too, to make sure that we can provide that for them. So that one's pretty short and sweet, just someone that you vibe with.
And then on those calls, you're also setting realistic expectations. So like, I love taking those calls just because then I can kind of explain our process without setting these stupid, like, I'm not ever going to lie to somebody ever. And when everyone who maybe there's a handful that are like, I just want to change my health. Almost everybody who reaches out to us initially is like, I want to lose weight. How fast can I lose 20 pounds? What's the results I'm going to get from you? And it's like, okay, here's what we do. Like our process is speeding up your base metabolic rate first, which means the first 3 or 4 months, you might not see any changes on the scale. You good with that? If it means forever fitness and we can keep it off after, or are you going to bail in a month because you didn't see weight loss right away? Like you need a coach who's going to tell you the truth and be honest and not just go along with what you want to hear. Like if they tell you what you want to hear, if they can't back it up, or if it doesn't support your health long-term and it's a short-term thing that will then backfire, I believe that's unethical and those coaches lack integrity.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It's about expectations. And it truly, I tell people my coaching starts from the minute those phone calls start. And that from the minute we start a conversation in my DMs or wherever we're talking, it's really important to understand and set those expectations. And obviously it also gives you the opportunity to, the whole premise of this episode, find out what kind of coach they are and what they do and what's the approach and if it's the right fit for you. So I genuinely encourage you to not hire a coach immediately. Like ask questions, get on a phone call with them. I had somebody message me today. Hey, I have a lot of questions for you. Do you do phone calls? Is that easier? I was like, fuck yeah, let's do it. And that's the point, right? Is to really be able to connect with somebody and make sure that it's the right fit.
And are they providing value with their content on social media that you're following too? That's not on our list. But as you're saying that, I'm like, I've had a lot of people reach out and say, but I want to coach with you. And I'm like, okay, well, let's talk about it. And they're like, no, I know what you do because I've been following you for 2 years and I've already learned so much from the stuff you're putting out. Yeah. If they are just pointing you in the direction of like, I'll help you get fit, hire me for the secret tips. It's like, if they can't provide value to you while you're not a client, you really think they know how to provide value to you once you are? Like, if they're providing you that free value and the education and you really know what they're all about and you know that they're already giving you helpful tools, that's a pretty good sign that they're going to give you even better support once you do hire them.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. I actually have had business coaches message me and tell me that I give out too much. I give too much in my private Facebook group. I give too much information. I need to pull back on my Instagram. And I'm like, no, if somebody can consume my content and change their life, cool. Like
we're helping more people.
That's literally the purpose. But
yeah,
a lot of times, most of the time, people need the guidance, the accountability, the customization and support that comes with that. And that's why we're here, right? So that is a good one. That wasn't on the list. I'm actually surprised we didn't think of that.
Okay, so I think our last thing is just like, again, if you are listening to this and it triggers you, if you think you know it all, then that is a red flag. Like thinking you know it all or having a one size fits all answer, like, or if your opinions aren't growing and changing over time. Like I look back at some of my programming in my first and second year of coaching or training in person too. And I cringed so hard at the way that I had these people work out because I just didn't know any better. And like the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. Like the more humbling it is, the more you learn because you're like, wow, I can't believe this whole new world just opened up to me of new things that I'm learning. So if a coach isn't growing and if you're not seeing that evolution in their career, then like to me, that would be a red flag.
Yeah. It's funny, like sometimes if clients ask me a question about like an injury, honestly, it's not my expertise. I will say, hold on, I got to call Jess. I'll call you back or I'll get back to you. There's things that or I'll say, hey, I'm actually not sure of this, or this isn't within my scope or whatever. I have no problem saying that. Like, I'll be like, girl, I got no clue on this one. Like, I'm stumped. Let me look into this and get back to you. And sometimes it's, hey, I just need to research this thing really quick. And sometimes it's like, I need to call a different professional and get a different opinion before I give you an answer. Or sometimes it's straight up like, hey, I don't know the answer to this question, right? Like we're obviously not genius, but
sometimes I'm referring clients to other professionals. Oftentimes I'm referring clients to other professionals. And guess what? That does not take away from my business. That provides even better value to that client.
Better experience, yeah.
Yeah, they end up changing their lives, and then they tell all their friends about us. Because it wasn't all about us. It's about helping them.
Yeah. Yeah. So that is all that we have on our list. I imagine we could have dug a little further, but I know this was a longer episode than our usual. But this was so fun. I hope that was helpful for you guys, because I think it's really important to make sure that you get the right experience, and you can get it right on the first time, hopefully. Unfortunately, I've had a lot of women who are like, PTSD with coaching experiences because they've hired coaches that were very generic, cookie cutter. I didn't talk about follower count, and not that I think that totally correlates to good or bad coach, but don't hire somebody just because they have 500,000 followers. That does not correlate to their experience or their skill. So, little old me over here with like 9K, which, I'm working on it, but there's no correlation there. So I think it's really important to understand who you're hiring. And this is a professional. This is like getting a fucking doctor or a therapist, or this is somebody you're putting a lot of trust in to help you make those changes. So it's really important to make sure that it's the right fit. So that is all that we have for this episode, and we'll see you guys next time.